gave him permission?
Yes. Very well.
Felt you had nothing to hide?
Yeah, I knew I didn't have any alcohol in the vehicle. I knew it was all trash. So
by the way, why didn't you throw the bottles in the trash?
In trash bags or in the
No, why don't you throw them in the trash can and not have them in the car?
Just forgot about it.
Oh, all right.
You know.
What else did they find?
When they searched the vehicle, they found fireworks, and I had shotgun shells from when we were hunting out at the land, and that was in the vehicle.
You had shotgun shells?
Yes, sir.
Were they spent shells or was it live ammo?
No, there was live ammo in a box, everything, behind the seat. And I had taken the shotgun out that weekend and just forgot about it. When I grabbed the gun, I left a box of shells in there.
So the gun wasn't in the car, though?
No, the gun wasn't in the car.
Now, the fireworks, what were they in there for?
Those were from 4th of July.
What kind of fireworks?
There were little, they call them artillery shells. They're like a little ball. You put them in a tube, they shoot up in the air. And sparklers and black cats. And so they were more concerned about the sparklers because they were altered and wrapped up in duct tape.
Afraid that you might use them for a bomb or something?
No, that's what they said it was. And so, you know.
By the way, you been in trouble before with the school?
No.
What kind of student were you?
Just a regular average student.
C student around there?
Yeah.
But no trouble before?
No. None before that. So, after being called in, they called me into the office, and they asked the school cop if he knew what it was. And I told them what it was, and obviously they didn't believe me, so they called the cop. And then the cop didn't know what it was, so they called the arson investigators. And once that happened, everything hit the fan. And they showed up and said it was a bomb. They went ahead and arrested me. I spent 2 days in county jail. Got out, and I just kind of went back to, you know, finger pointing everywhere I went. My truck, everybody noticed, and so they put
it made the news?
Oh, yeah.
Local news, newspaper, TV, everything?
Oh, yeah.
Did you then get suspended from school?
They suspended me. I was kicked out for about a week and a half, going through school hearings in court. And finally, they let me go back to school where it was in-school suspension, and I stayed there for 3 days. And then finally, they kicked me out and went to an alternative school.
They kicked you out?
They kicked me out, expelled me. I had to go to an alternative school, which is all the way downtown Houston. And stayed there for 4 weeks until I finally got my case dismissed. And then I went to another alternative to try to get my grades back up and in order. And then after 7 weeks, I finally was allowed to go back to school.
All right, Jennifer. Did the punishment fit the crime? Should he have been suspended? Should he have had to go to an alternative school?
Yes. Yes, I absolutely believe so. I was the first parent at the school at the end of the day, and the reporters were there, and that was how I found out that this had taken place.
And your daughter's at this school.
My daughter.
So you don't know a whole lot about the case. As far as you know, it could be another Columbine situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your mind goes to that immediately as a parent.
You don't feel, Jennifer, the school should have said, well, Brian, what is this stuff for? Brian would have explained it. He's got no prior record. The shells were live, but there was no gun there. He gave them permission to search the car. Clearly, he was not afraid that they were going to find something that would get him in trouble. And so maybe, as he said, an in-school suspension would have been appropriate as opposed to what happened to him.
Larry, the rules are in place. They're put in place by a school board that has responsibility for tens of thousands of students. They cannot take a case-by-case on every incident that comes up. They don't have the time to. Plus, those rules are in place to develop character in our students who are going to be citizens of society.
Well, for one thing, the school doesn't even know their own code book. But if they look in the
code, say it again?
The schools don't know the code of conduct book. It says in the penal code that I was placed with having an explosive weapon on school property. If they looked on it, for it to be an explosive weapon, it also has to be implied with intent to do bodily harm or physical damage to property. And clearly, the APs, the assistant principals, they asked me, like, what were you planning on doing? Were you planning on doing anything? And I was like, no, I wasn't.
Would you have told them that you were planning to do something after being caught? Would you have said, oh, yeah, I was planning to?
Well, I wasn't doing it in the first place, so...
But her point is, if you're going to do something bad or intending to do something bad, of course they're going to deny it.
If I was implied on doing it, wouldn't I have had it on me in school at the time that it happened? I mean, why would I wait, halfway through the day to, go to my vehicle and get weapons out?
Now, these were firecrackers, as I understand it, that had been taped together to be a larger explosive than they were originally intended to be.
It's a glorified firecracker.
There's an intent to blow something up when you put those together.
No, it's a glorified firecracker. Wait, when you go to the, the games, you see the fireworks up in the sky. All it is big as fireworks. Am I not right?
But your intent is to blow it up bigger than it was intended to
Jennifer,
be.
how does your daughter feel about his punishment?
She agrees with the policy. I mean, she understands. I've been a parent volunteer in the schools for a long time and helped to coordinate other parent volunteers. And so I look at this from the administrator's side of view as well as from a parent's point of view.
And I see that point too, Jennifer. What I don't see is him having to go to an alternative school. I can absolutely see the school officials being concerned, calling in the police, calling in the FBI. I can see all of that. But then after he's taken in custody, and after he's interviewed, and after they see that he has no criminal intention, it seems to me he ought to be able to go back to regular school.
The school board has set up a system for taking care of cases like this. And the way that they set it up was to have an alternative place for that student to go for a duration of time. That's the way it was set up. Now, I support the school system in whatever way they decide to handle it.
We have to take a break. When we come back. We are back talking to parents and students who feel that zero-tolerance policies in school are actually hurting students instead of helping them. This is Chloe, her mother Nancy, and her stepdad Maxie. Mom and stepdad say Chloe was the victim of a zero-tolerance policy at her school when drug dogs were alerted by something in her purse. Chloe, how did the drug dogs get alerted to something in your purse? I don't get it.
Well, I had my pills in my purse, but they sent everyone out of the classroom, and the dogs searched around, and whenever I went
Wouldn't they just bring in dogs routinely on a random basis and just have them run through the school and find stuff?
They usually go through the halls and do lockers, but the principal saw that some other schools were doing this, so she decided to, a week before they did the other hall, and then it was our hall's turn, and they randomly picked 2 classes, and they brought the dogs in, and we all left. And
By the way, Nancy, did you know that they routinely brought in drug-sniffing dogs?
No, we understood that in our school system that they brought dogs in. They would go through the hallway, sniff the lockers, which is legal. They would go through the parking lots around the cars. But I never knew anything about this and didn't know that any other schools ever did this.
Actually, same question. You were completely unaware that they were doing this, bringing the dogs into classes?
Right. This was, from what I understand, this was one of the first, or the first case that this school system had tried this actually in the class.
All right, Ms. Zero Tolerance, are you okay with dogs going inside classrooms?
Absolutely.
I thought you would. Okay, so Chloe, the dogs sniffed something?
whenever I went in there, the lady said that they had smelt something around the area around my purse.
And then they asked permission to open the purse?
Well, at first they asked if I'd been smoking, if I'd been doing drugs, if I'd been with anyone who was smoking or doing drugs, and I told them no, and then that's when they asked if they could go through my stuff. And so
you said fine. You didn't feel you had anything to hide?
Yes, I told them that they could, and so they went through my coat and through my binders and then through my purse, and they found Sharpies and they got onto me for having those. Then they found my phone and told us we're not supposed to have them on during school, and then they found my pills in the pocket of my purse.
Well, they hit the jackpot with you, didn't they?
Yeah. Several things.
Man. Okay, and they found your birth control pills.
Those pills are actually she takes for her polycystic ovarian disease, and her mother says with the other drugs that she takes with them, they totally counteract the birth control portion of the pill. They're just for hormone control.
Right, this is for hormone control, not for sex, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, you were taken to the principal's office?
Yes.
And what happened?
Well, she told me that we have a no drug tolerance policy, and she told me that we're not allowed to have them unless we take them to the nurse, and she told me that I was going to be suspended, and I had two choices, and that we discussed it when my mom got there, and my choices were I could be suspended for the whole year, or I could do the 10-day suspension with random monthly urinalysis testing and 8 hours of drug counseling, then an hour of counseling with the
Drug
school
counseling?
counselor.
It was for
Yes.
drug. Actually, she told me when I went in there to the principals to pick her up, they said this will be for drug abuse counseling and drug abuse testing.
Jennifer. Jennifer.
Yes. I'm sorry that she's made a mistake and had to pay the consequences, but the rules are in place. The rules are in place for a reason. The legal climate that exists today, if they were to let her go, it sets a legal precedence for any other case, and so another child could bring Ritalin, which is being sold in the schools for black market use.
Jennifer, she was treated as if she's some sort of addict. Drug counseling? She's on birth control pills to regulate her hormones. This is nuts.
Well, the rule doesn't state.
Yeah, give me some. Thank you. I thought. Trying to get somebody on my side. Brian, what do you think?
Well, I mean, a lot of schools don't realize their decisions they're making. This can affect someone's life all the way throughout their entire, if they can't finish up their education, they're going to miss an entire year of schooling. What are they going to do?
Well, if I could say something, my daughter, she's a honor student. She's on the Renaissance program for exceptional students. She doesn't do any of this. Her school, it has in place a drug policy, but it is not a zero drug tolerance policy. They treat they're supposed to treat each situation individually. They look at the situation, the student, all the history, and they're supposed to make their decisions on that.
Somebody was applauding.
Except this time.
Of course, everything should be done on an individual basis, right?
Their policy was written to a point that I don't think the school principals and administrators even really understood that it wasn't a zero tolerance policy.
Come on, Jennifer.
2 weeks ago, my daughter had a migraine headache at school. She stayed at school for the rest of the day. When she came home, she told me about it, and I told her you should take Excedrin to school with you because that helps for her headaches.
Right.
And she reminded me that there's a policy in place that says she cannot take those to school and that I have to go down to the nurse's office and take the Excedrin and explain why they're there so that when she gets a headache, she can go to the nurse's office. That's the policy. That's the rule,
Jennifer,
and we respect that.
Right, and you sound like you have a very bright daughter who
She's
is...
an honor roll student
absolutely.
also.
Suppose she had taken the Excedrin to school. Suppose drug-sniffing dogs found it. Suppose she gets called to the principal's office. And then she's ordered to either get suspended for the rest of the semester, or 10-day suspension, or an alternative school, and drug counseling. How would you feel about that?
She would have had to pay the consequences. That's
Jennifer,
how we
why did I know she was going to say that?
responsible and accountable
Why did I know you were going to say that,
She was talking about administering the drugs. In our school system, they do not have the money to have a nurse at each individual school. So you actually have a secretary in the front office or a bus driver administering medication. I mean, it's only a matter of time until she's got 10 things going on. She gives the wrong kid the wrong medicine, the wrong amount, or when she gives the medicine to that kid, something happens, some reaction, and she has no medical training whatsoever to help this child if there is trouble.
Chloe, what do you think they should have done?
Well, they should have gave me some punishment, but not suspending me for the whole year and treating me as a drug abuser when I'm not.
Maxie, what would have been appropriate?
Oh, I think some detention, in-school detention, or they have a classroom detention or whatever. Something like that would have been. I mean, yeah, she did make a mistake, and she should have been held responsible for a mistake, but, the punishment should fit the crime.
And real quickly, Jennifer, do you think the punishment fit the crime?
I don't know if the school board followed, if that was the only policy they had to expel her. I think that was a little severe. But as parents, this isn't the way to fight it. The way to deal with it is to attend the school board meetings and have your say beforehand.
And have them change the policy.
That's right.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. We are talking with students and families who feel that zero-tolerance policies in our school systems are doing more harm than good. Has zero tolerance in schools gone too far? That's the question we're tackling today. Now, we've got a mom, Barbara Julian. She's all the way from Prior Lake, Minneapolis. She's with her daughter, Monique. Barbara is in favor of zero tolerance. Barbara, tell us about your attitude about zero tolerance.
I just believe that kids are there to learn, and teachers have enough with different types of personalities, and you should know to just go to school. You have certain times to do things. Go to school, learn.
Rules are rules.
Rules are rules.
Monique, you feel the same way?
No.
I didn't think so.
It depends on, like, to an extent, yeah, if someone has a gun in school, sure, I feel the exact same way. But to have beer bottles in your truck or small sparklers, that's totally uncalled for.
Mm-hmm.
And birth control pills, I mean, really?
You know, we had an episode in Oklahoma here just a few months ago that where a kid during hunting season, which hunting is really big. I mean, in portions of Oklahoma, they closed the schools for the entire week of hunting season, and his dad drove the truck, went hunting, had the rifle behind the seat, left it in the truck. The kid gets up the next morning, gets in the truck, and goes to school, never knowing it's in the truck. And happens to be a time that they search the truck, and he gets caught with it. And then, you know, he's up on weapons charges. He's out of school. I mean, and he had no knowledge that the gun was in there. It was his dad's
And Jennifer,
mistake.
what about that story?
Dad should have taken responsibility for it. Our parents are as much involved in the school system, or should be, as the kids and the administrators. And Larry, if we take these things case by case, we're going to end up with a judicial system within the school system trying all of these cases. There's no time for that.
So the kids didn't have the same right as an adult. I mean, you can't have zero tolerance on murder. You've got first degree, second degree manslaughter. You've got, you know, if somebody breaks into your house and you can murder them and get away with it.
Well, my question for you is, you expect all these parents to come to these meetings, and maybe you're wealthy enough where you can, but what about all the parents who work? You know, that is a big problem, and they can't go to those meetings and make the huge difference, so that's not the simple answer to all these things.
My household income is about $35,000 a year. My husband and I chose to make a sacrifice to have me stay at home as an at-home mother because we take the responsibility of being a parent and being involved in the school system very seriously.
I like this
We are
woman.
raising a
like this
citizen
woman.
of the society, and our finances aren't what we're going to look back on when we're done with it. We're going to look back and see what kind of a person we have developed.
We're going to take a break. When we come back. We are back. This is Andy, who says the reason he was kicked out of school wasn't the fact that the knife was in his trunk or that marijuana was found. It was the attitude of the school officials to kick any kid out of school who didn't fit their standards. Anonymous tip?
An anonymous tip.
Somebody called the school or called the cops?
I don't know the situation of how the anonymous tip got to the school.
But somebody called anonymously and said you had marijuana on you.
Actually, it was not clarified what the anonymous tip was about. It was their excuse to go ahead and search my person and my car.
Okay, so where were you when you were notified they were going to search you?
I was in an art class, actually.
Somebody walked in?
Yes, I had both the principals and 2 security guards walked in and escorted me out. On the way out of
Do you have any idea what they wanted?
Not a clue. At the time, I hadn't a clue.
You're in there painting and all of a sudden...
Actually, I was in there carving, we were working with clay, and I had a razor blade in my hand, you know, carving out clay. So in fact, I got a razor blade in my hand, and I was kicked out for a knife from the tackle box.
Yeah.
You know.
So when they asked if they could search you, you said, okay.
No, I denied them that. There is no reason.
You said no?
Yes, I said no. They had no right to search me. I had done nothing wrong. I was sitting in art class. I asked them to call my father. They denied me that right, too. After that, you know, I was like, all right, there's really nothing I can do. Emptied my pockets, emptied my book bag. When that was happening, I put my car keys down on the table. They confiscated my car keys and would not give them back to me. They took my property.
No, when you said you can't search me, they searched you anyway?
They searched me anyway. Like, you're not leaving this room. It's either us or the cops. Someone call the cops. And like, well, we're just going to do this here. We're going to do this now. So I emptied my pockets.
They said, it's us or the cops, we'll call the cops.
Yeah.
And you said?
Fine, you can search me now. I mean, that's just more time of mine being wasted where I could be in class learning something.
Okay, so they searched you?
Yeah, they searched me. Nothing was turned up on the body search besides my car keys, which, you know, they kept. They wouldn't give them back to me. I repeatedly asked them to call my father because this has been happening for so long. He said, you know, have them call me next time. I want to be there when this is going on. No, they once again denied me that.
And they wouldn't allow you to call your dad.
Yeah.
They took the car keys and
They
then
took the
did
car
what?
keys, they walked me down to my car. I told them they didn't have
Where was your car parked?
about a quarter to a half mile away from the school. It's actually across the highway.
It's not on school property?
It's actually in a church parking lot.
Is there
Church
some-
parking lot, Larry.
Is there some sort of arrangement between the church and the school that allows kids to park their cars there?
So that's as they say that they have a contract, but there cannot, through the Constitution, there cannot be any contract legal binding between church and state in any way.
So their argument is that your car was in fact parked on school property?
Yes.
All right.
But he handed me my car keys, asked me to open the car. No, I'm not going to open my car. You don't have any right to search my car. I've done nothing wrong. I was like, if you want to open my car, you can do it yourself. So I figured by that, in some way, I would gain some legal standpoint, as in they're opening my car. They're taking the steps to, the search. The police couldn't perform the search. There was that much of no grounds for it. So they went through my car. They completely destroyed my car.
So they searched the trunk, and they find?
They found a knife in my tackle box. The knife was about this big, next to my fishing poles, which clearly states the form and purpose of the knife. For fishing. There was no intent to do harm. There was no intent to take it to school.
And did they find anything else?
There was 2 marijuana roaches under a seat, in a cigarette pack, in a trash bag, at that, which was unknowing possession. I didn't know that was
How did the marijuana get there?
I couldn't give you the slightest clue. I can give you a clue, but, I have a lot of friends. I'm always having people in my car. I'm a kid.
And you allow them to smoke in your car?
Yes, at the time.
Not smart.
Not smart at all.
Not smart. All right, so what did they do to you?
At that point, I was taken back up to the school. They had called the cops. I got a citation for, causing an unnecessary disturbance.
They called the cops and the agents, federal agents.
Yeah. I got a citation, $250 for causing an unnecessary disturbance, which I didn't cause an unnecessary
Did they take you to jail?
disturbance. I was taken to the police station, sat there all day. I wasn't locked up, anything like that. But I didn't cause an unnecessary disturbance, Larry. I was sitting in an art room, doing my schoolwork. The school board and school officials were causing the disturbance.
Okay, so what kind of punishment did you have?
I was permanently expelled. Permanently. No suspension, no second chance. I was permanently kicked out.
Where'd you go?
I got my GED. This happened on my 18th birthday. So I was 18. They had no legal responsibility to help me out in any way with my education whatsoever.
So you were kicked out for having a knife
in a tackle box next
to your fishing poles, and they didn't kick you out for the marijuana?
Nope. Nope. That wasn't even brought up in my hearing.
What did your dad say when he finally found out his son was in jail or at the police station?
We're going to have to start another show for that one.
Larry, if someone had malicious intent, they could stage it to look like fishing equipment.
If I had malicious intent, I could have used, excuse me.
But how many personal rights do you step on to protect, the student by, and also, if somebody has an intent, yeah, they're going to come up with some way. You're not going to stop them with a search. You're not going to stop them with
Jennifer,
anything.
It just seems to me that we're just losing sight of just common sense.
Yeah, there's no common sense in any of this.
I mean, the guy kicked out permanently?
Common sense is to follow the rules.
But where's the common sense of the school officials
To
in
be
these decisions?
responsible. What's that?
Where's the common sense of the school officials for these decisions? To suspend him for sparklers, for the
common sense is for the safety of our kids.
The safety of our kids. Can you show me any information, any reports done that proves that these policies are making our schools safer in any way?